Hey everybody, so this is going to be a new story format series of mine. I've got a bunch of stories I want to share, but they are just too long for a short form video and too important to me for a compilation. So these are going to be tales from the streets, and I think this is episode 1. So this is the story of my first day on the street, and coincidentally, I thought it was going to be my last day on Earth. I remember everything about that day 100% perfectly. It was September 29th of 2023. I remember every emotion, everything I felt. But the thing that sticks out most of my mind is grabbing that door handle in my little tiny apartment for the last time, opening it, and walking out. When I took that last step out that door, and my foot hit the concrete, from my very tiny basement apartment, my heart was just racing. It was boom, 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 boom. I was terrified. And this is back before I had any diagnosis on my medical issues. Luckily, I do now, and I've lived admittedly, a fairly cushy life for my entire life. And going from that and going down to where I was, and going even further, going out on the streets with no knowledge, no nothing, I was terrified. I walked out that door with a few $100s in my pocket, a very large bag, pickle bag, strapped on my back, and a few articles of clothing. I did have a few electronics with me. I had my phone, an old Acer gaming laptop, and a Steam Deck, all from, the life that was past. No gear whatsoever, so to speak, of except that, big pickle bag. And I knew I had to do something. I knew the night was going to be cold. It was the beginning of October, and again, I had nothing. And I went down to a pawn shop, Googled it, took a bus down, and sold the Steam Deck and the laptop. I got really ripped off. I'll admit that. I got really ripped off, but now I had a few extra $100 more. I think combined for the both of them, I might have got $400. But that's the thing with pawn shop owners. They can smell desperation. They know when you need and they know when they can take you. And I don't regret it. It got me by. It helped me out. And I did it. My first thought was to take that money I've got now and go to a motel room for a few days. Just figure things out. I really knew that was a bad idea. And I'm glad I chose not to do that because I'm sitting there freshly the first day out on the streets. And I've got my medical problems. I have seizures and all this stuff. I can barely walk sometimes. It was bad. And not actually knowing what's going on made everything worse. Compile that with no real outdoor experience and no equipment. It was that. Go to a motel for a few nights and use everything I've got because they're not cheap. Or figure, what I'm going to need to survive on the great outdoors. So that's what I did. I jumped on a bus, jumped on another bus out of town, and went to an outdoor shop. I think it was actually a Bass Pro shop up in Vaughan. I figured to myself that they're going to sell better gear than I could get at Walmart or Canadian Tire, and hopefully a better price. And, Googling and whatnot, I was able to. I wiped out pretty much every penny I got from selling my stuff on gear. I got a thermal sleeping bag that was good to -40, and I will admit that was probably one of the best things I've ever purchased in my life. A few Mylar bags and a tent. A knife that I thought was really cool and good. It was a horrible knife. It broke. A camping stove and some camping pots and pans, and looking back now, huge mistake. And when you're out there, you're never actually going to use it when you're, outdoors in the woods. It's costly. Fuel costs a lot, and those pots and pans that you get, they break. Don't buy them. In fact, I'll say you can probably get better from the dollar store. When I finished all of that, I didn't know this area, so the only thing I could think of was head back towards home. That's still a weird thought in my head that where I think of home, where home used to be, isn't home anymore. I remember that thought clearly sitting on the bus back to the GTA, back to Toronto. That gut-wrenching feeling that home is not home. And I still get that a little bit just thinking about the life that is gone. It really hurts, man. It's not a nice feeling. My stomach just churns. It was a lot worse that day. By this time, My phone is getting low power, maybe 10-20%. So I took what remained of what I spent at the camping store, what I sold my stuff for, went to Walmart and got one of those power banks. I live off of those now. I also had a Jackery in my bag that was dead charged. Was dead. It was dead. It needed to charge, and at that exact time, I couldn't charge it. I didn't have the solar panel to charge it or the connection to plug it into the wall. I eventually managed to get one of the connections to charge it in the wall, but that was weeks later. And so I got that battery bank, and I thought to myself, where am I going to charge this? And I went to the library. I love libraries. I've always loved libraries. I've always been a bibliophile, I guess you'd call me. I like books. Went to that library for a few hours, charged my power bank and my phone, and literally left when they closed. And by then, I hadn't eaten all day, and I was getting hungry, so I googled what grocery stores was open and jumped on a bus to get into the grocery store. Went in and bought myself a half rotisserie chicken, some chicken dipping sauce, potato salad, and I spent $6 on 2 beer. The only thing I could think of was go back to the library, even though it's closed. I like the library. I feel safe at the library, and that's where I went. I sat outside the front of the library first for a good hour, and I didn't think I could stay there all night. I'd get noticed, or someone's going to see me. Something bad's going to happen. I would stay out front. I don't know what was going on in my head because that area is fairly safe. So I got up and I left that area and I walked around the library to the back, where I saw a spot kind of behind the bushes hidden, and that's where I set up. It was starting to get cold too. It was down to like 1 or 2 degrees Celsius. So I unpacked my sleeping bag and I crawled inside, had my phone in my hands, unpacked my chicken and beer and chicken sauce and potato salad, and I sat behind that library the first night eating chicken and having 2 beers. It was not a bad night, all in all, that part. If I was at home, that would have been a great Saturday night. I wasn't at home, though. I was behind the library. I spent the rest of that night Googling and making phone calls. I've called every single shelter I could find looking for a place to stay, somewhere I can go. And I got turned away from every single one. Unknowingly, in Toronto, they were turning away, at that time, 500 people a day from the shelters. And it stayed that way for months and months and months. I've called 2-3 times every day after that, trying to get into a shelter for a solid 3 months until I just said, I'm never going to get in. There's no room. So, yeah. With that, I spent a whole lot of time just Googling where to go, what can I do while I'm behind that library. And it was about 3 o'clock in the morning where everything just started to get really real for me in a way that every sound was terrifying to me. Every light that went by, because it's fairly close to the road, I thought I was going to get found out, or so the cops were going to come. I was going to get arrested. I'm doing something wrong, just trying to live. And it was the most surreal experience, just being outdoors with no option of going back in. And every noise, everything just scared you. It was then I thought, okay, this is my first night out here. This might be my last night on Earth. This is my last night on Earth. I literally thought this was the end of everything. I was done. It was around 4 o'clock in the morning when I was deciding to get up and get out of there. You know, sun's starting to come up and people are going to work. It's getting too active and I'm getting scared and I didn't know where to go. I finally got it in my head to jump on Google Maps and search for a place where it looks like there's going to be no people. And I'm in a city of 6 million. There's not many of those. I was very fortunate to find where I ended up going, where I was able to stay for several months, undetected and undisturbed. And through that, being in the woods, I learned so many skills. I learned what you need to actually survive, that I can do it, that I am a lot stronger than I ever thought. But that's going to have to be another story because, yeah, that's my first night. It was terrifying. So, all in all, I don't necessarily think of that and look back and think that's a horrible time. I don't think it's a bad time. I've gotten a lot stronger since then. I've learned so many skills. I've learned what I'm actually capable of, what I can put myself through, what I can actually do. And I actually looked at that back at that night as a source of pride in myself, that going from very cushy lifestyle to I'm a bushman now, and I know I can get through anything. I know I can survive anything. So guys, I hope you liked the video. It's going to be a series. I've got so many stories I want to share, and this is the first one. And we're better to start the series of stories and the beginning. So I hope you guys come and join me for the next one. Take care.